Hello dear friends. Now I'll show you how Babylonian merchants in the hot deserts of Babylon 4,000 years ago bought the future from today. And believe me, this agreement on the clay tablet was designed much more cleverly than those complex financial contracts you sign today. In fact, even more so, more fairly. In this video, I'll teach you exactly these things. 1. Futures contracts are not actually Wall Street's invention. They were invented exactly 4,000 years ago in Babylon to protect farmers. 2. How ancient merchants managed risks, where today's trillion-dollar futures market came from. And the most surprising part, how this system, which was initially set up to protect the people, turned into a speculator's casino. If you're ready, let's begin. Because after this journey, you'll never look at the stock market the same way again. Now close your eyes and transport yourself to the 1800s BC. The place is the hot deserts of Babylon, the times when Hammurabi was king. On the banks of the Tigris River, the sun has just risen. In front of a contour made of mud bricks, a merchant stands. His name is Nabuchodonosor. The clay tablet in his hand is still wet, the cuneiform inscriptions on it freshly carved. This isn't something like an ordinary shopping receipt you get from the market. This is one of the first futures contracts recorded in history. And now comes the really striking part. What's written on this clay tablet is so complex that it incorporates all the mechanisms used by a trader trading on the Chicago Exchange today. For example, there's a delivery date, a fixed price, quality standards, penalty clauses, and even a guarantee system that kicks in case of default. Now pause and think. 4,000 years ago, no computers, no internet, no electronic systems. But how did such an advanced financial instrument emerge? To better understand the answer to this question, let me make an analogy. When you go to a concert, what do you see? You hear melodies and harmonies spreading from a magnificent orchestra. But do you know what's underneath that music? There's centuries of accumulation, music theory, mathematical ratios. Well, the modern financial system is exactly like that. You just look at the shiny screens. Stock exchanges, stocks. But underneath, there's a thousands of years-long trial and error process. Babylon is the place where those notes were first written to the universe. Returning to the answer to our question, it's actually very simple. Human nature has never changed. Our needs have always remained the same. Only the tools we use have differentiated. Futures contracts are the natural result of humanity's effort to control that uncertain thing called the future. And look, the merchants in Babylon were playing this game in a way that would put today's Wall Street billionaires to shame. Now, let me ask you something else. Suppose you're a farmer, you'll harvest barley in 6 months, but right now you have no idea what barley prices will be in 6 months. Do you think it's fair to tie your family's livelihood to such uncertainty? Maybe there'll be a drought, prices will skyrocket, you'll get rich. Or maybe there'll be abundance, prices will crash, you'll go bankrupt. Isn't this a complete gamble? Well, the Babylonian merchants asked exactly this question, and they found a magnificent solution. Since we can't completely eliminate uncertainty, let's commercialize it. Let's see what's written on Nabuchodonosor's clay tablet. To farmer I Marduk, 500 gur of barley to be delivered in 6 months. Price: 2 shekels of silver per gur. Delivery place: Babylon Harbor, Marduk Temple Depot. Quality condition: first-class barley. Foreign matter ratio less than 2%. If not delivered, penalty: 20% extra of the total amount to be paid. You see, right? This is a complete futures contract, word for word. Now let's understand the situation of both parties by benefiting from this contract. Farmer I Marduk can now sleep comfortably because he's locked in the price today. 2 shekels per gur. No matter what happens in 6 months, he'll sell at this price. Maybe the market price of barley rises to 3 shekels. He'll lose a bit, but maybe it drops to 1 shekel. Then he'll be saved. The important thing is, uncertainty is eliminated. The man can now make his plans. On the other hand, merchant Nabuchodonosor is making a different bet. If the barley price rises to 3 shekels, he'll profit. If it drops to 1 shekel, he'll lose. But look, this guy is smart. He's made similar agreements not with one farmer, but with dozens. He's diversified the risk by creating an investment basket. Some agreements will bring profit, some loss, but the total portfolio will balanced. Here you go, the grandfather of modern hedge funds, Nabuchodonosor, Babylon's first risk management expert. And guess what happened? The system he set up worked. Babylon became the trade center of all Mesopotamia. Wait a second, you know every story has a dark side. Of course, this story does too, because over time, the system started to corrupt. How? The invention of speculation, which I even cringe to mention. Look, at the beginning, it was so beautiful. Futures contracts were only between the real producer and the real consumer. That is, between the farmer and the merchant. Simple, plain, and honest. But then a third player entered the picture. Intermediaries. These were neither farmers nor people who would use the barley. They just wanted to make money from the price difference. Imagine this scenario with me. Merchant A goes and agrees with farmer B. 2 shekels per gur. Okay? Okay. Then what does he do, you know? He goes and sells this contract to another merchant for 2.5 shekels. That merchant sells it to another for 3 shekels. There's not even a single grain of barley yet. Only clay tablets are changing hands. And the price inflates, inflates more. Then harvest time comes. The market price of barley has dropped to 1 shekel, but the last contract says 3 shekels. What happens, you ask? The last buyer goes bankrupt, completely pulls the bankruptcy flag. Then the domino effect starts. Another merchant falls, his creditor falls too. Temples suffer losses, the credit system locks up. And there you have it, history's first speculative bubble crisis. In Babylon, in the 1750s BC. So, what did Hammurabi do about this situation? The man issued smart laws. Take a look at the 100th article of the famous Code of Hammurabi. If a merchant has sold a good that he does not have in hand and then cannot deliver it, he will lose all his assets and be banned from trading for 5 years. Do you know what this is? This is the ancient world's manipulation ban. The ancestor of the rules put in place by the Chicago Board of Trade in 1848, exactly 3,600 years earlier. And Hammurabi didn't stop there. As I mentioned in my video titled "Your Credit Card Debt Was Solved 4,000 Years Ago, Hammurabi Code," the man didn't just punish, he reorganized the entire system. He arranged temples as central clearinghouses. Now all futures contracts had to be registered with the temples. Every agreement was recorded. Temples were acting as a sort of clearinghouse. Every merchant had to deposit a security deposit with the temple, just like today's margin account. Speculators were limited. Fake contracts were prevented. The system was put back in service of production. Now, does this remind you of anything? Think about the 2008 financial crisis. Mortgage derivatives, CDOs, CDSs. None of them were based on real production. They were all speculation products. Then, what happened? A huge explosion. Boom! Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. The world economy came to a standstill. Then bailout packages, regulations. So, friends, what Hammurabi did 4,000 years ago, the world had to do again in 2008. Because as humanity, we still haven't learned to take lessons from history. Now let's return to Babylon again. Futures contracts weren't just for barley, by the way. Dates, wool, grain, silver, copper, anything you can think of was there. Let me give you a concrete example. On a clay tablet dated 1764 BC, it says, "To be a producer Belsunu, 100 gur of barley for delivery in 6 months. Price, 1.5 shekels per gur. Quality, top quality barley. Moisture ratio, less than 12%. Did you see? Even the moisture ratio is specified. Because if the moisture ratio is high, the barley rots. You'll see the same detail in today's commodity contracts. Temples had set up enormous warehouses. They kept not only physical goods, but also records of all contracts. The Isagaila Temple was Babylon's financial center. It was like today's New York Stock Exchange. Merchants met there every day, made deals, bargained over prices. Now, let's make a comparison. What happens when you make a futures contract on the exchange today? The computer system records it instantly. The central clearing institution gives a guarantee. You open a margin account. Settlement is done every day. In Babylon, it was exactly the same. The only difference, clay tablets instead of computers. Priests evaluated the merchant's reliability. This man has fulfilled all his contracts for 3 years. Reliable. Or, caution, this merchant defaulted twice last year. Risky. Exactly like today's margin system, the merchant deposited part of the contract in advance to the temple as collateral. If the price went against, the temple used this money, just like today's margin call. Now let's dive a bit deeper. What made this system possible? The answer is very simple. Writing, accounting, that is, record keeping. Without cuneiform writing, there would be no futures contracts. Because for a contract to be valid, you need a document accepted by both parties. And look how interesting. There are contracts that can still be read 4,000 years later. Will your electronic contracts be readable 4,000 years from now? What will happen when servers crash, formats change? Babylon's merchants may not have known modern technology, but they knew the value of durability very well. And now, let's come to the most striking part. Why did Babylon's futures market collapse? The answer is just two short sentences: excessive leverage and moral decay. Over time, merchants began to borrow more and more. They were selling goods they didn't have. And the temple saw this but ignored it. Because they were profiting too, they took commissions from every transaction. Let me tell you about a real event. In the 1720s BC, in the city of Larsa, a group of merchants got insider information. That year's harvest forecasts were going to be low. What did they do? They sprang into action. They made contracts with all farmers at low prices. Then they sold these contracts to others at high prices. Harvest time came. The forecast was correct. Prices skyrocketed. But the farmers had to sell at low prices. While the merchants multiplied their fortunes, the farmers went bankrupt. This event was recorded as price manipulation. It caught Hammurabi's attention. New laws were issued, but by then, it was too late. Trust had been shaken. You know, trust is hard to earn. Then what happened? In 1595 BC, the Hittites invaded Babylon. The city was plundered. Temples were destroyed. The system collapsed. But pay attention, the real collapse had started long before the invasion. The system had rotted from within. Greed, immorality. These gnawed at Babylon from the inside, wore it down. The Hittites just delivered the final blow. Does this sound familiar to you? History really consists of repetitions. Tools change, but human nature never changes. But let me tell you something hopeful. Babylon collapsed, but its ideas didn't die. Futures contracts spread to every corner of the ancient world. The Phoenicians used them. The Greeks developed them. The Romans systematized them. In the Middle Ages, Venetian merchants turned them into a global trade network. Then they became exchanges in Chicago. Today, it's a $1 trillion market. The lesson we draw from this is, financial instruments themselves are not bad. What's bad is the greed of the people using them. Babylon's futures system was established to protect farmers, but it corrupted because people abused the system. The same thing is happening today. Futures markets should serve the real economy, but most of the time they turn into speculators' casinos. This teaches you, no matter how well designed, if there's moral decay, the system collapses. And right here, let me bridge to the topic of our next video. Because along with futures contracts in Babylon, something else was born. Interest. Merchants started adding interest to contracts. Delivery in 6 months, but if you deliver early, 10% discount. Let me ask you a question. Can time have a price? Does waiting 6 months deserve extra payment? Or is this exploitation on the backs of the poor? In the ancient world, this turned into not just an economic, but a religious and moral debate. In the next video, with the title, Selling Time, Why Interest Became a Moral Problem, we'll dive right into this topic. Because the history of interest is much darker than the history of money. Let's wrap it up. What did I show you today? First, that futures contracts are not Wall Street's invention. They were developed 4,000 years ago in Babylon to protect farmers. Second, how the system over time fell into the hands of speculators and corrupted. And third, how Hammurabi tried to save it with regulations, but moral decay occurred. And most importantly, history is our best teacher. The financial crises we experience today are not new. They've all happened before. If you've watched this far, I have a small request from you. Please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, write to me in the comments. What do you think about Babylon's merchants? Let's learn together. Let me tell you one last story. There's a clay tablet in the British Museum. It has a futures contract on it. A modern trader who saw this tablet said, "This is almost the same as the contract I use today." Here's the true face of humanity. We've been playing the same game for 4,000 years, just faster, with bigger amounts. But at its core, the same game. And to play this game, you need to know history. You can't understand the future without knowing the past. You can't understand Wall Street without understanding Babylon. I hope this video has been enlightening for you. I hope you're now looking at futures markets differently. Because in the end, we're all part of the same game. Time changes, tools change, but the game is the same. And the winners of the game are those who know the rules. In the next video, we'll see the dark side of interest, its moral contradictions, and how the modern debt economy turned into an exploitation tool. Get ready. See you soon, friends. And remember, knowledge is freedom, but only if you use it.